Hey everybody, am I live? I think I am. We have people watching. Gotta get rid of that. All right, so welcome to this week's stream. I missed you guys last week. Simon stepped in and covered some stuff, I think, on the content pipeline. I only got to watch that for a little bit while I was driving. All right, people are still strolling in. Let me silence my phone. I don't need any of that. Let's see. So today we were going to go over, I wanted to do something different since the last couple of weeks we've been doing Vulkan time. Today we wanted to look at the F-Audio implementation, because that's another bit that we need in order to complete, to get 3.5 out. We feel like 3.8.5 out is to complete the Vulkan implement, or complete the F-Audio implementation, so we have a complete stack for audio input, Windows support, graphics, all in all for Mac and Linux, as well as the DX12 backend has DX12 and has an X-Audio implementation that comes from that's shared with the Xbox code. So in this case, and SDL2 for the windowing system. So in this case, we use SDL2, Vulkan, and we need an audio implementation. So that's where F-Audio comes in. So let's go over that. I guess we can start from the beginning on that. Let's share my screen. I'm just kind of organizing here still. I have way too many windows open. Still getting ready. Where's our chat? Hello, everybody. Thanks. Yes, the shirt, it feels, I don't know, it feels Thanksgiving. That's a Thanksgiving holiday in the US yesterday, so it felt like a Thanksgiving shirt. Everybody having a meal surrounding the table, and then chaos ensues. So it felt Thanksgiving. Let's see. I was going to try something else while we were here. Let's see if this works. We're always trying to improve kind of our chat experience here. Let's see. All right, that's working. So waiting to see if any of the chats come in. I have basically we'll see if this works for us. Share my screen. So I guess I go to this. Share my screen. One thing. Wrong window. Screen 2. Screen 1. Right. We'll see how this works out. Let's do. Nope, that seems bad. That's probably best. All right, so I got this on-screen chat on here as well, which seems like could be nice to be able to see it in the stream. Hey, look, we got spam. Added to block list. All right, so I wanted to start with was talking about F-Audio for a moment. So F-Audio it was made by Ethan, who works on the FNA, fork of MonoGame. The issue that we have is we need a good audio backend that we can use on console, or not necessarily console, but we need a good F audio or an audio backend that can be used on Mac, Linux, and Windows that can be shared, so we can have a kind of shared binary experience where you can ship a game with one C# binary that can work on Mac, Linux, and Windows. This is mostly for convenience for developers, for shipping on Steam, where you can ship one binary that works everywhere. So to do that, you want to share your backends. You want to share as much as possible. In this case, even though we don't technically have to, we ideally would have one solution that works everywhere, which makes it nice for the developer. There's only one thing they have to worry about, even though there's complications. Yeah, I should increase my font size. Thank you. Bang. So Off Audio kind of provides that, and it's kind of sad. I was looking around, and like, there aren't a lot of audio libraries out there that work for Mac, Linux, and Windows that are well known and well maintained and kept up with. Xaudio 2 has kind of become the default standard for Windows on DirectX projects, which is the low level thing that a lot of people use. Of course, there are high level libraries like Fmod, or what's the other one? I forgot the name of it now, but there's another one that's competition with Fmod. But there are things like Fmod, which are great and everything, but they're kind of like a high level library that provide like a lot of functionality beyond just playing a sound effect, playing a sound file. So there's this lower level thing that you kind of need. And Xaudio was the solution that was used under XNA and has been used on Windows forever. It's used on Xbox. So we're using Xaudio for, when you're developing a DirectX title on Windows or you're developing on Xbox, it's using Xaudio. F-Audio is Ethan's way, the F&A team's way of providing something that works like Xaudio that also runs on Mac, Linux, and Windows. So that was the cool thing about that, is that it provides an accurate reproduction of Xaudio for Mac and Linux that also works on Windows, and under the hood, it takes care of making it work the same. So it kind of deals with that problem on its own. Now, I was looking to see if there are any other libraries that we could go to that are not another compatibility layer, but there really isn't that much out there. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see anything more out there that was interesting, when we were looking into this stuff. Hang on a second, let me improve the appearance of that chat a little bit. Seems like it needs to be a little bigger so that it's easier to see. That's as big as it gets, so I'm making it always on top so that it does that. And I hate these windows that are like this. So that's better, maybe. So with this, it kind of gives us that compatibility with Xaudio. So it works. It does all the things that we expect the XNA type API, C# API for audio and MonoGame to do, and it works cross-platform. Xaudio or F-Audio also works on some console platforms. We don't plan to use it there. We really, on console platforms, we always write to the metal to get the lowest level, functionality that we can, that, gives us the most performance and everything. And we try to avoid depending on third-party libraries on console as much as we can, because a lot of times, like, for example, a new console comes out, we have access to it for months at times before the console actually ships. A lot of times these other open source libraries don't have access to that, and it makes it difficult to deal with. And, if we have to port that library anyways, it's like, well, it's just in the way of us just shipping. So a lot of times we go with the native API for that console, so we get something as to the metal as possible, especially with lower end devices that, you don't have a ton of performance to begin with. These handheld console devices, we want to get as much performance out as we can. So the idea was to implement F-Audio as the audio format to use whenever we're targeting, Mac and Linux, and again with the shared binary concept, like the desktop build that has Vulkan and F-Audio and SDL, basically. So that's the idea, and it basically is the API, which I think you can see it in here, is basically a reimplementation of the Xaudio API. So where you have wherever you have a function that's X audio this, X audio that, you have F3D, you know, or F audio stuff. That's actually the wrong header. What's the header? There we go. So if you come in here and look at some of the code in here, you'll see that it is F audio, where normally it was X audio in the API. So F audio create instead of X audio create, but it's basically the same API. I think there's some differences in a couple places, but it's basically the same API. So we have somebody that went and made an implementation of that. And let's see, where's our stuff at the moment? I don't even know what my status is here. Let's see. Get status. What branch am I in? I'm in content fixes, which was, I was working on the content stuff the other day. Oh. What other branches do I got? Let's see what other stuff is I have left here. Okay, I was working on some fixes for meshes. Yeah, this is some cleanup code for some mesh stuff. And I was from some old Vulkan work. I'm going to stash this stuff because it's not important right now. And then I'm going to go to our regular branch. Fingers are rusty this morning. So let's go to the MonoGame repo. Sure. Nope, don't want to go there. Can't be showing you that stuff. So we have a pull request here for an F audio implementation. There we go. Done by Subsent. You know, the problem we ran into this was that, you know, when I believe it was Tomas ran it and he had crashes and bugs with it. So what I'm going to try to do here, and I've done this in the before, is I want to kind of take his PR and do some fixes and get it, you know, get it working and merge my fixes into his PR in order to get a final thing. So I forget how I do that. I've done this in the past. I guess I could just make a new PR based off of this, I guess. I thought there was a single way to do this. I always forget. Oh, there it is. No. No, don't want that. Don't want that. I guess because it's not an actual PR, that doesn't have the normal link that it puts in here. Okay. There we go. That's what I want to do. Okay, so we have some conflicts. Let's see what those things are. Fix them up. This is a complicated one. I have to understand what the heck got changed by who. Let's start with the first one, work our way down. Let's see. head, which I guess in this case is his. Is that our PR or his PR? Let's see. Okay, I'm pretty sure that is Dean's changes. Miss it. It's one of these PRs or one of these commits. Nope, not that one either. Yeah, I can be looking for this forever. Maybe I can do not known. Interesting. It might have been something that was squashed or something. Oh, which is the actual? Let's go see what his change was. That might tell me more. Let's go look and see what. Let's see what his change was that broke this. That'll tell me. That's right. He was changing some stuff in the build process for some reason. I forgot what it was. I think this is what happens when we start mixing priorities here. Yeah, he was changing stuff here. Okay, he was trying to add that. I see. So he was adding build F audio. So now I understand what he was trying to add. I can figure out what conflicted and why. So he added this recreate directory, which I guess is a helper. Did he add that in? He just found that there was a helper called recreate directory, I guess. Where's that at? Okay, so recreate directory is a function he added in the bottom here. That's not a bad thing to do. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it, doing that. So we're going to keep that part. I'm not sure about this part yet. Yeah, this thing's all screwy. Now, sometimes what I'll do is I'll transplant the real fix across. I hate it when these things are complicated like this. It's like both of them, I guess, Dean's changes. What I'll do is this. I'll get the latest from that and I'll transplant some of his work back in. That'll be easier, at least for me. My brain's not always great with merges. Which is this build native dependencies task. Okay, well, we know that's not true. Annoying. Build frameworks tests. So there it is. This is what it's supposed to be. That's the right one, isn't it? Build native dependencies task. Right? Sure, I got that right. Yeah. This is extremely simple compared to the other one. So it like changed a lot. Wild. Just gonna save this real quick in, let's see, I'll just save it there. Yep, that works. And then I'll use that along with this. Sometimes I resort to dumb things like this because it's just easier for my brain. There it is. So yeah, this changed completely. Okay, so I see what he did. He kind of made it two helper functions in order to get it to work. And then went from there. So his stuff is obviously the other side of this. So I'm going to get it back to his state first. Get rid of this just to understand fully what's happening here. Let me swap these because that's the side I want to. So he separated out into two functions, build SDL2. So this should be this code. What else? Build F audio. I'm gonna close my Discord so that it stops popping up in the middle of stuff. Come on, Discords, go away. Why do I have like a dozen open Discord windows? In Discord. There it goes. All right, so he did this recreate directory, build F audio, pin platform make C args. How did that happen? Man, it's all tangled. The question is really what did they change here? I guess the important part is this chunk here. I see what happened. He added this helper to do the CMake build. Woof. This is not how I wanted to start, but you know, it is what it is. Let's see. I'm not going to worry about this too much. I think I've removed the conflict, but it lost something, I'm sure. I need to understand basically what was changed in here that caused the conflict. Okay, it must be changes here. You can just understand what change occurred here. Oh, the change that occurred here was white space, and that's the thing that has been screwing this whole thing. That's freaking annoying. So nothing occurred. It was just white space. So I can throw away all the changes from this side because there are no changes. So as long as this compiles, we should be fine. Yeah. So yeah, there was no changes. It was just this white space that basically said, there's a conflict, there's a conflict. And because he had mixed the entire code base up in that file. No, that's the thing that happens sometimes. So I think we can go back to what we were doing. Let's see, we should have this fixed. I'm not going to do anything there. So we should be on this test branch for this. Okay, cool. So I think the easiest way to test this might be with the unit tests, maybe. Let's see. Yeah, we'll assume the unit test might be the best way to test this for now. So I'm going to open the framework native solution, I guess. Is that the right thing? Yeah, I think that's the right thing to do. All right. Come on, thing. Might need to actually move this over so it's not getting in the way of the other stuff. It's still big. Other way, let's see. That's better. Can I do this? I sort of can. I can. Hide. All right. Guess I should update my captions, huh? All right, so let's see. So this has the implementation in here. There's our desktop. Okay. Open SDL F audio. So this is the F audio implementation here. I bet that it needs to pull something that I haven't pulled. I guess it's a submodule maybe. There's the F audio submodule. That should fix some of these things, maybe. Oh, I need to rerun. So we have a thing that we use in here, pre-make, and I bet you I need to rerun that. This is all kind of hacky, but it works. I will fix this. I think it will at least. Okay, yeah, fix that. Man, I should close everything in here. This is getting to be chaos. There we go. I'll maybe speed up my Visual Studio. All right. So let's start with just compiling this, making sure it compiles. So we got that much. The next thing I want to do, and this is what my goal originally when we were talking about this in the foundation meeting, I wanted to, in theory, the F audio backend should look identical to the X audio backend. Again, F audio being a reimplementation of X audio. So the same API, but a different backend implementation that works on Mac and Linux. I don't know why I'm getting that problem. It should look identical to our X audio implementation. In fact, if we wanted to be really aggressive, we could share the implementation with just some defined differences, but we should get the same basic thing. So let's see. I'm going to compare these two to see how close these are and get them as close as possible. In theory, they should be the same. Um, so no X audio to buffer. Not sure why yet. If audio source voice system. So some differences there. I want to keep these things the same to make it easier to understand what's happening. So I'm going to just do these fixes and, get us where we need to be here. I did change the right one, right? Okay, let me swap these. So sometimes my brain works better if the thing that I'm changing is on the right side than the other. So lining these up. You want to do the same things. Sometimes I'll just work inside of here because it's easy. Nope. We keep a pointer to the last buffer assigned to it. He's not. See, I think I want to try to I'm debating whether I should just aggressively mirror it 100%. Because looking down here, like all these differences that I don't believe needs to happen. Like I think it literally could be the exact same implementation with just changes. And if that's true, I'd rather have that. I know that Substance spent some time on this, but the intent was always to do this, was to copy it across and just make modifications as necessary to adhere to the F audio changes in function signatures, whenever we need to, but for the most part to be identical. So I won't just do fully that, but I'll kind of step through here step by step and make things match. So he did do the reverb effect stuff, which is kind of cool. We might pull that back in the X audio implementation. So I'm going to just go for it with some of this stuff. And when these things fail to compile, I will see why. I'll keep that duration because I'm not sure what the deal is there. I'm assuming that I guess it's not a pointer anymore. That's interesting. I wonder why it was a pointer. We'll look into that in a minute. I'll keep the voice. He had the sound state. Let's see why he's doing that. But I'm going to keep this state the way that it was because I think we want to keep that mix. He started using the MG defines for this stuff, which is maybe not a bad thing. We've been inconsistent with it. These are mostly there for the transition between C# and C++ to make sure that we have well-known types that work across that, but we could technically use them internal to the API as well. I think people get too concerned about like making their own types and stuff like that when it's unnecessary. C++ already guarantees that float's the same thing everywhere. You don't need to really have a type like that, but it happens. So I get why some people want to do that. But yeah, let's just be fast and messy and break things and not worry about it too much. This thing kept the volume for some reason. It probably doesn't need to, so I'm going to say no thank you. It's keeping a buffer. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to keep that state. I'm not sure why that's there. We'll figure it out later. These kinds of comments I hate because it's like, yeah, I get system create F audio instance, like it's self-describing. Like, why would you write a comment, create F audio instance? Yeah, it's pretty obvious. The function's called create, here's F audio. That's what it does. It's kind of a useless comment, and I'd rather not have one than have a useless comment. if it gave us some detail into how you were creating it or something, that would make sense. So this has some better cleanup code potentially. If it fails, it returns null for the system. I don't know if that's good or bad. If that fails, something, most likely everything else is going to collapse after this. Like you'll have C# crashes because it's going to assume that the system created successfully. The C# side has to account for that, but it's probably not a bad idea to have this kind of fallback. The truth is like if it's let's say if you're shipping a console game, like the audio system fails to create, there's no recovering or getting better. It's your code is broken, right? It's not the console. Usually it's your code. If it's on a PC, it could mean that your audio device is configured wrong, or you're missing a driver, or I've seen cases where if headphones aren't plugged in, audio doesn't work on PC at times. So there's reasons for PC to kind of deal with this a little more gracefully and actually try to make the game continue to run without systems like this, because it could help diagnose the problems. I don't know if there are any support for debugging features at all with again, create mastering voice. No, it already says what it's doing. There's no need for a comment that says the same thing. I don't know if there is any debugging features in F audio. I'll have to go and look at some point and see if that exists. My guess is it maybe doesn't, because that might be very hard to reproduce or recreate that functionality, but I'll have to look into it. So F audio create. Interesting that he has. This might be a side effect of how. Yeah, because the F audio implementation here is using the C API version of it. I think Ethan's only had a C API potentially and didn't use the C++ style wrapper that's there. So the signatures will be slightly different, but it should still work. What's interesting is he's passing these defaults in here. Is that because, I think that's probably fine. Yeah, it's probably fine. Probably. Again, dumb comments. This is something that isn't in our implementation. We'll have to go look at backporting that potentially at some point. Where's the submix voice there? Get voice details. Why was I getting voice details? I guess probably to use for the submix voice. Okay, yeah, there we go. I bet you Ethan has it set up so that things like this might be. I think he puts them in. No, he doesn't. He's not. In ours, we are mem setting things to make sure things are clean. In theory, this should probably work whether it has a mem set on it or doesn't. But I feel better with it having it. Get rid of. I really just loathe these comments that don't really help. It just gets in the way of staring at actual code. Okay, so we do create the effect chain. We just do it in a different order to this. Reverb voice set effect chain. Oh, this is, yeah, no, this is the same thing. Right. Oh, I see. He's using a descriptor here to fill it out and set it. Okay, that makes sense. The startup code might be the code that's the most different. So there are definitely more differences here between the APIs than I was expecting, but you know, is what it is. Is that the speed of sound definition? Yeah. That isn't predefined somewhere. I actually have to go to Rex Audio implementation and check it, which I can do. Yep. So there's a definition for that that's exactly that. I wonder if that's just not, actually it's different. 343.5. This is 3443. Let's see if I'll do. I will go to this one. Let's see, so this is a comment that actually tells you what I'm doing here, you know. Which is different than like comments like this. Like those are the things that drive me fucking nuts. They're a useless waste of time. The fact that you have to take the time to mentally to read it and then realize, oh yeah, that didn't help me at all. That's what bothers me. The only thing that he wasn't checking results on, I wonder if there isn't a result. Yeah, he removed the error result there because he doesn't have an error internal to that, so that's why. But cool, so we're past that. Let's go on to the next thing. System destroy. Let's see. I wanted to see. Let me just jump back and forth between Visual Studio and Beyond Compare while I'm doing this stuff. They initialized to null, so that's good. I don't like extra junk in here for no reason. We don't need curly brackets around stuff like that. It's just extra typing for no reason. Makes it harder to read sometimes, and this is more compact. How about, destroy a system? There's some other stuff here that we might need to bring across. but we'll wait till we get a core system kind of in place. We might need to actually go with this as well. In fact, this is, showing that we're missing something here. We're not destroying the stuff that, the reverb voice and stuff like that. So that's probably bad. Stuff that needs to be backported. So this one's like, oh, infinite instances. We've kind of defined where, hey, 256 is more than enough. It's hard to say. Like, it's not like if you had max instances just means max, voice instances is what that's for. It should have probably been more clear what that is. But you're not going to hear 256 sounds. So if you're playing more than 200, you need more than 256 sounds actively. You're maybe doing something wrong. Also, let's say you needed, 500 sounds. Let's ignore the fact you can't hear them all. It's just not something that's going to scale very well to other platforms, to console, to mobile, to anything else. So really, let's do this. Let's put in, I'm going to just fix this one. We'll deal with fixing that one later. Let's type in here. So that's the reasoning behind having this, is that, we want to limit. If you design around, it can be infinite, you're going to be in bad shape when you go to some other platform and have weird issues. It's better to have some reasonable limit to ensure that, things don't go crazy. And you really shouldn't need this many. I can see someone saying, well, I have a bunch of guys, I have a bunch of enemies walking around my level, and they all have a sound that's playing, and I need to pause them when they're when they're out of view, and I turn them back on. So I want to keep it in the same state. It's like there are better ways to handle things like that than just keeping instances of them everywhere. It just slows down the system. There's really no reason to be doing that. So a reasonable limit makes sense. So back to this, let's look some more differences. So again, useless comment. Let's keep them the same. Some differences in the order here. I think we want to make it the same, just so that we have, it's easier to see differences in problems. I mean, I know there are two implementations, but the more similar they are, the easier it's going to be to tell when something's wrong. I'm pretty sure all these should be the same between the two. I won't move that across. I'm not sure why I'm using byte there, probably because the structure says byte, but it's, keeping things the same is not a big deal. I'll just move these across while I'm doing it. Seems easy enough. Wrong thing. Is there one that's missing? No. Oh, it's wet dry mix. Yeah. Yeah, it's commit now is the default parameter to this, so that makes sense. All right. This is a little different. So he's using new and delete. I think this is using malloc. So that's probably why that difference is there. Yeah, we'll get back to that in a minute. This is pretty gross. I don't like that. We should fix that. We will maybe in this implementation. One second. Let's see. Let's keep it the same. You see, this is where it was like, why was buffer format being allocated? It probably was because, let's go look at the Xaudio 2 implementation. It's because we were using different formats for different types. So that's why that we have that difference. Let's see how he implements his, but we'll leave this alone for now. I'm definitely going to switch it over to using malloc. It just feels better for this to just malloc instead of new and delete. I don't know. Feels more low level raw, I guess. I'm not sure about the WMA buffer. It could be that it doesn't support WMA in F-Audio. That might be true because WMA is kind of a proprietary format, so I'm not sure if we can support it on other platforms. So that's something that's kind of interesting. Not that a lot of people are using WMA, you know. So I'm going to assume that wave header here is compatible with waveformat EX. This is the ADPCM path. It doesn't have an ADPCM path at all. What happens if there is an ADPCM? What is this doing? That's kind of interesting. Like, does it only have a path for ADPCM and that's it? I guess that's the only other format it supports. It doesn't even really fail in any interesting way if it's a format it doesn't support. It just says, oh, whatever. So yeah, that's kind of wacky. Yeah, that's kind of odd. Are we in here? That doesn't seem like a good setup in either of them. Look at that. Just Langton said. I think on this side we malloc, don't we? Yeah, we're doing basically this. Okay, that's useless. That's a more reasonable comment, right? Like before, it's like, copy, what was it before? Copy audio data. Yeah, but it doesn't tell you the reason why. So a comment needs to tell you why you're doing something, or give you actually explain the code, and not just say copying audio data. Like, why? Why are you copying the audio data? That's more important. If you're going to write a comment, write one that's meaningful and useful. Calculate duration is not a bad thing here, most likely. I'm sure it's used somewhere else in the API here. Yeah. I mean, I think how I implemented it the other way was our calculate duration here, or get duration, probably did the implementation on here, trying to have a generalized solution for all cases. But the truth is that calculating it on a per buffer type, ahead of time, it saves a little, recomputation every time it gets called, even though it's probably negligible and not important. But it also means that each format can potentially provide it a different way. So that's not a bad thing. So yeah, a thing that this doesn't have is so this is making the assumption that, whatever format is, F-Audio will support. I don't know if that's necessarily true. And, the X-Audio implementation is just as bad here, if not worse, in that it's, wherever it is, it just supports two formats and then gives up, after that. So there's definitely some problems here with that. I need to see if this actually does the right thing for 80 PCM. I bet it does not. So there's something to be looked at there. Let's see. 10. We only got an hour left. I thought we'd get through this quicker, but let's see. Ready PCM. This is just our first pass. We'll start testing it here before too long. We're about halfway through the file, and things will speed up here. Buffer initialize PCM. Yeah, don't need that. So this was allocating one of format EX because I think it's mostly because we supported different formats. And it seems like, I don't know, even is either doing something, interesting with F-Audio wave format that supports lots of things, or this implementation is not doing the right thing. So we'll see about that here soon. I bet that this is not defined for that. So that's why he's doing it this way, and that's fine. That's a good use of a comment describing, like, why are we doing this? Because of that. Let's line things up a little bit better just to, this order is better, actually. We'll fix this one on this side. I like having channels first, then samples per second, but whatever. Average bytes per second. Right. Yeah, this implementation does it a little different. It does block. He's calculating it slightly differently. It's probably not a bad way to calculate it that way. So I've once added drawings in ASCII art to make comments clear. If you have a complicated thing, I think I've seen that in some things that do like signal processing would use ASCII art at times to describe some stuff. Whatever you're trying to convey to the next person that's looking at this code, what and why things are happening. you know, and if you don't do that, then another person has to struggle, and it's just better not to do that. You might as well drop the knowledge that you have at the moment so that, you know, they can benefit from it, you know, now. Interesting that this is always 16. That's probably bad, right? So making the assumption, oh, like it's always 16. Well, that's not what's supposed to be happening here. That's wrong. It takes the sample rate, but the bits aren't coming through. So that's a bug, definitely, for sure. I'm just going to do that right now while we're thinking about it here. And this is wrong because of that. So this is a better implementation in that regard. It's doing things a little bit better than the other is. Yeah, I like doing this better. Yeah, that can't be fractional. So I think that makes things a little clearer. I'm going to go with the malloc and not the new. This was something that I found interesting that I've seen actually happen. Actually, this is because we can initialize a buffer but not have buffer data because it's being used for the streaming. So I'm going to continue to support that. We are that's why that's there. That's a place where I probably could have put in a comment to describe what I was doing that. Again. That's a good assert to keep in here. Oh, let me change this side too. Yeah, let's make it the same. Okay, so this is where I'm preparing an Xaudio 2 buffer ahead of time for this thing. I bet you his implementation doesn't use this. We'll keep going here, and when we get there, we'll discover it. He's at least trying to calculate a duration for this. I don't know if this even makes any sense. Yeah, I'm dubious about all that code. Here's some Xbox code that's in here for XSD PCM, which is the format supported on there. That's interesting. I barely remember writing this code. I'm pretty sure I wrote it. Yeah, I'm dubious about this exact path. We'll have to look into that later. We do need to follow our rules here, allocations and stuff. I don't have to write a bunch of code. I avoid it. Yeah, I'm dubious about all this code. I'll have to step through that more specifically later. So iteration just returns that. The audio voice callback system is not in there. I guess probably because he didn't need to. The question is also, does F audio support that? We'll have to look into that soon. So creating a voice, again, useless comment. So this one, voice create, just assumes it's PCM. Wait, why is it doing? Okay, interesting. Why is he setting that up to begin with? See, he's moving the voice creation to actual voice create. So yeah, he's trying to implement this API differently than the other one is. Oh, sorry, can't do that. Magic number hidden somewhere. Like stuff like this. Yeah, I mean, this is a Windows defined for wave format PCM. I think it's actually in the X audio implementation, but it might be that Ethan's implementation doesn't have that, is my guess. If it doesn't, then, it ends up being, a magic number. No, it does exist. He has them. Look at that. We should be using this. Let's fix those cases. Because, magic number's bad. I mean, that's a magic number that's been the same forever. So it's not something that's going to change anytime soon, but it's good to find them properly. I think that was the only case of that. I didn't think so. I don't know what that is. Audio initialize 8. Wonder what that special magic 8 is. 8-bit, 8 sounds, 8 streams. Who knows? Find out. So back to this. So he is like how we had it set up, and maybe this is a bad way to set it up, but how we had it set up is that the voice doesn't get created until play occurs. I want to keep it the same here. Get rid of this bullshit, unnecessary brackets. Wonder if F Audio's source voice has the same optimization. It takes extra work. Okay, so yeah, that's not the same. So that's better. It takes extra work to calculate the rest of the voice state. So X Audio would let you pass in a, hey, I don't need to know the current samples played, and then it skips over that extra work and just returns the queued buffers. That's the only reason why that's there. Nope. I know it's weird that I'm kind of working between two editors at the same time. It's just the process that I have. See, in his case, voice always exists. So yeah, I mean, the problem is, and this is something I struggled with when I wrote the API, is I kind of want it to be efficient at the same time. Like, you don't know what the API is written where you don't know what type of buffer you're going to get past, when you start. In fact, this is kind of bullshit. Like, I forget why I have this in here. This was an intent for something and I just didn't use it, I think. So I need to figure out what the right change is there. But like creating the buffer to begin with, is nice because it means like you're doing the extra work at create does work, right? It does some work. So if you called create, you say I paid for some work to be done here. You got that work done then. And so if you were like from an implementation point of view, it's like, oh, I'm going to create my voices ahead of time. So during gameplay, it's not creating voices. I get that. Even though I don't think voice creation is an expensive thing. So I can see why someone would want to do it that way. And I kind of want to do it way. The problem is how this is designed is we really don't know. We don't know what the voice is until you attach the buffer. The buffer is the thing it's going to play. The buffer defines like what the bit rate is. Here's the data. Everything else is defined from the buffer. So they kind of play together. So that's why when we set the buffer, that's when it's like, okay, now is when I'm create the voice is that set buffer because I know what it is. And this set the buffer only sets the buffer. It does not actually submit the buffer. His case here was submitting the buffer. So yeah, we need to make this work more like ours. So if we already have a voice, stop it and clear everything. So basically the first play will I'm going to move this create down to here. I'm not sure about that yet. Let's take this sucker out of here. Make those match up. So if it has a voice, it's going to stop any sounds currently playing, flush the source buffers, clear basically anything it was currently playing. This is where you're changing the buffer being played on an existing voice. If not, then it's actually going to create, a sound from this buffer. This is actually a case that's interesting as well. Set buffer being passed a null buffer. Is that valid? Probably is. Possibly is a valid approach here. this is kept because it's used later. So let's see how that works out. We'll see what happens here. But this is not a bad concept that, if there is no buffer, then there's nothing to do here. So I'll keep that concept. This appending, and see, he's building the F audio buffer on the fly, for this instead of pre-building it. So I see what he's doing here. Let's keep this code because we might need it later. This is all kind of a hacky solution here. It works, but it's kind of crappy. It's something that we need to make better. So mostly the reason why it was like this and I did this global was because it should probably be attached to the system, but there is no system being passed here. And so since there isn't a system being passed here, it's like, well, where do I get it from? Well, I don't want to attach the voice because we want our free buffers to be shared across voices. So this is why this magical global got added, which works. It's not the end of the world, but it feels kind of crappy design wise. It doesn't feel elegant. Anyways, gets back to this. So here he's actually doing all this to create a voice because he doesn't have a format, but now we do. So voice, the format actually comes from the buffer. So I'm going to take the buffer format. And if it doesn't exist, we'll fix that. I think that's also why it was a pointer, because it could be different things depending on what it is, I think. Yeah, I'm dubious about his format stuff. We'll see. I'm going to take some guesses on things here. We were using the callback handler, but this one isn't yet. Let's ignore that right now. Doesn't need to do that anymore. I might need this code later. I'm just gonna hang on to it. Put it into a file, hang on to it for later, just in case I need it. I think that's the equivalent there. I don't know if SOK exists on the other one. I don't need any of this junk. And I do like stacking parameters like this in a function call whenever things get kind of long, just to make it easier to understand what you're seeing. Didn't do that there. Kind of got like that was on the verge of me feeling like, maybe I should hit return and break it up into multiple lines, but I didn't. Pen buffer. Not going to mess with this just yet. We'll get back to that. I want to kind of get to the meat of play and a couple other things first. So this is where the code starts to differ a lot. So instead of using pause, true, false, he just used state. That's what he did differently. I hate scrolling up and down the screen too. Unfortunately, my life is made of scrolling. Been scrolling since the 80s. So this is better, doing this instead of am I paused or not. That was for like some specific cases. So, and to avoid some extra work and things like that. Okay, so let's copy this across and then clean it up and do the right thing. Okay, so need this as well because I don't know if this could ever happen. Wait, no, that could voice not equal null. Yeah, I mean it could equal null. So I was just thinking about like we already do this stop up here. But it needs, yeah. I guess play should potentially always stop. Like whether it has a buffer or not, it should probably always stop. But yeah, that's a little weird. I'm gonna trust the code here was correct, but we'll see. Keep track of this looped. Get the lower level buffer. Change the loop count. It's just, he was basically like in this code here. He was basically just building the buffer new every time instead of keeping one around. And I was just keeping one around in the buffer, inside the buffer object. So yeah. I kind of like recreating it instead of, man, I'm getting lost here in the code. Okay, here. Kind of like recreating it than, or not recreating it. I kind of like keeping it and then, making it like this is making a copy of this buffer. It's kind of gross how that code looks. It's making a copy of the buffer, then from that copy, just modifying the parts that it needs. If it's looped or not, then playing it. That WMA buffer thing needs to be changed. Because I don't think it supports that, but we'll find out. It's going to be that. Voice. So audio buffer, it is going to be just buffer. So I think that's correct. We'll have to go back and add this, and I really don't like that auto there. Got into a bad habit of using auto, so I do so much C#, so I've gotten used to the idea of interesting. Oh, that's interesting. The because this doesn't wait, how does that happen here? Oh, the voice holds on to a system. Aha. So we do have the system. Yeah, we do have the system. Duh. So that can be cleaner. That's better. That also might have been why he moved the create up there, is he didn't realize, well, how the heck do I create the buffer if I don't have the system? I need to create it somewhere else, and it might let him the other path. So now I get why that was happening, potentially. Okay, I'm going to put this if audio buffer. If we had it, where did we put it? I know I'm kind of all over the place. Brain can be kind of scattered at times. I'm not going to do that one for now, because we don't know about that. We don't need this. Possibly need that still. It really really, I don't know why, but it seems the last couple of years, I keep buying these mice that, the button goes all the way to the edge, which is nice and everything. But then when my mouse hits the edge of my keyboard and presses my mouse button, it really annoys the hell out of me. Just doesn't seem like old mice did that. Something I've noticed lately. Because it should be that. Okay, so we'll get back to this. Okay, don't want to get ahead of myself. We're getting close to the bottom here. We'll get to the, man, cutting it tight on time. Back to where I was, way down here somewhere. Callbacks, voice create, destroy. Skipping a pen buffer for now, play. So I want to get the main path of like creating the system, creating a voice, playing something, stopping it, pausing it. Just trying to get that main path into a working state. So pause here, we did this thing where if it's already paused, then don't try to pause again. So let's just do that here too. So don't try to pause if it's already paused, it's unnecessary. Okay, I was checking to see are the queued voices before calling stop. And I'm not sure why I was avoiding that. There's also a question, will this crash if the voice is null? Yeah, I mean, if this would possibly crash. That looks like a crash bug there. Because you call pause on a voice that was just created. Right? There's no inner voice here, but, so that's probably a bug there too. I'm not sure why I'm doing this case. Like, is there something? I guess because you're calling stop. I assume that stop being called here in a voice that isn't playing has no doesn't do anything. I would think there's no buffers queued. Stop should do nothing, so it shouldn't matter. So it's kind of curious why I'm doing that. I guess I'm avoiding it actually going to a pause state, like saying, hey, it's paused, even though it wasn't playing anything to begin with. So I'm just avoiding that, I guess. So let's copy that behavior just in case. We'll fix this in a minute. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm going to look to compile. I'll come back and fix those things later. Just trying to get most of the code in place. It's not paused. Then call play. And we actually internally called play here so that it does the right behavior. And I'll do the same thing here. What else was I doing? If it's not paused, then call play, meaning like if it's stopped, just call play, even though they called resume. Because I think that was the behavior that we saw out of XNA. If you call resume on a stop voice, it still plays. The reason to call this is that this flushes the buffers and starts over, right? Whereas this just continues the playback that was already happening. Where is start over here? There. I kind of hate functions that are like that have an if and an else, then nothing. And it seems like, this might be nicer. I prefer code that's like this generally. Like I explained this a long time ago when I was actually trying to get a job. I did a code, had to do, coding on a whiteboard. They asked me to write a function, and wrote a function like all my functions were like, if something return, if something else return, if something else return, and then at the end did the work. And he asked me like, why am I coding it like that? And I explained at the time he thought it was interesting, and maybe it wasn't interesting, but the person hiring me thought it was interesting. Like I like to exit people out of the function as soon as possible, so that they can stop reading, right? Like if they're trying to figure out like, well, what happens if this happens, when you call this function, it's easier for, the code. It's easier for somebody reading the code to understand, what the logic is if they don't have to go through the whole function to figure it out. And we have a bunch of nested if statements. It kind of sucks you in where you have to be focused on the code to try to figure out what path it might take and where does it get to the point that I care about. So instead, I often, do an early exit on my code. Like as soon as I can tell, like I don't need to proceed any further, I exit out of it instead of having a lot of nested ifs. I think school teaches people to do a lot of conditionals and branching and things like that. And I just I like to have if return, if return, if return, if return, if return, and get everybody out of the code that's not necessary, then finally put the code that actually works. I don't like, if this, else do this other thing and nothing in the body. It's like, I don't like having a lot of nesting, so I keep things as flat as possible, and I think that generally makes the code easier to read and follow. So that's something that I often do in order to just make it easier to work with. So back to code. Let's see. So I think this is good. Stop. Okay, that seems reasonable. Voice. Well, this is interesting. He implemented immediate. That's good. We weren't really implementing that, but we probably should, flush source buffer is yes. State stop. Yes. I like having state there instead of pool. This is me being lazy, paused or not, but really a full state is kind of helpful. See, but here's where it's not helpful. He really shouldn't be doing that. That's a bug. Like get state. Oh, well, what's the last state? This is where the code, he wasn't thinking when he wrote the code, like that doesn't work. The only case that actually works is this. And that's specifically why I did it this way. So because there's no concept of paused in the system. Like X audio, either the sound is playing or it's not playing. There's no paused concept. So we paused ourselves. So if the state is paused, return paused. But otherwise, you need to check the state from the voice itself and decide what is actually happening so that it can return the right state. This is really only useful for that case. Other cases, you have to check the voice because you really just don't know what the state actually is. So that's why I was keeping a just paused or not was for that. This is a little nicer in a way because it knows some internal state, but you can't trust this state. It's just the state that it was the last time the API was called. It's not the state that it currently is. So that state might be called something better like last known state, not the actual state. Maybe I'll make a change like that here in a little bit. Get position. So this didn't have the implementation of it, but this one does have the implementation. There's no reason it couldn't have one. It just wasn't done. Actually, there's some other fixes here to be done. Actually, no, that case works. So that shouldn't have a problem there. Stop should have a problem. Voice is null. There's nothing to do. Same thing here. If voice is null, just return stopped. That's kind of the state when you begin, is the thing is stopped. Get position, same deal. Got to return something. Position. All right. Voice update output matrix, another complex one. So close to the bottom of this. It looks like he's doing the same things. Yeah, this one looks pretty much a copy of the other one. So I don't see any problems with that. I can skip over that. This seems good. Set pitch. Yeah, he's keeping pitch. There's no reason. I don't think there's a reason to keep the pitch. I'm not sure why he's keeping it. Yeah, like no one uses it, so what's the point of that? It's kind of weird. This should work the same as the other one. This is just how X audio pitch works. You need the XNA pitch is, not the same as the pitch that X audio takes. So this transforms it into the same, type of ratio that the X audio expects, or in F audio as well. He's keeping the volume here, but I don't know if we ever use voice volume for anything. Yeah, another case of he's not using it for anything. He's just keeping it for shits and giggles, but we don't need to do that. So let's stop doing that. Again, the high-level C++ C# code knows what the voice that was the last volume that was set, but this doesn't, and that's fine. It doesn't need to know that. You could say that eventually, if we ever wanted to make this C++ API something somebody could use independently of MonoGame, like just as a C++ API for a low-level renderer or a low-level audio system, they could. And that'd be nicer to have functions for set volume, get volume, but we never did that because that's not really our goal. This looks the same. I keep those things the same. Yeah. Oh, I swapped these two. I did hit the button. I got confused there for a second. That's fine. Let me try to keep things as similar as possible here. Sure, that's fine. Probably unnecessary, but Definitely don't like this dangling if without the brackets, but you know, it is what it is. Usually in this case, I'll want to flip it, you know, but I hate making it a less than or equal to test, so I'm going to leave it like that. I just really hate this, you know, imbalance. I'd rather have it the other way around. But it's fine. That's just me being crazy. I know I have some neuroses as a programmer of like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. So I try to avoid that. Okay, interesting. So that might be something we need to deal with. We'll see. I'm going to leave it like that. We'll fix it in a minute when we go back to the code to fix issues. Filter parameters. Yeah, too many cooks in the kitchen does happen. I'm not sure which one is correct here. I'm not sure if that should be max filter frequency or whatever Q. I'm not sure if that's. It defaults to 1, so maybe that's fine. I also like white space. To me, like having this break here between the two, I think is important. You know, between the structure definition and then the code down here, it's like I want to have this white line between it to divide up like the concepts. He definitely copied some stuff from this code, but then made some choices in places that, you know, I don't necessarily agree with. It doesn't mean that it's completely wrong or anything, but I want to try to make these two as similar as possible just to cut down on maintenance. That if one works, the other should work. It also kind of helps, you know, the F&A team as well. Like, you know, we can, if we spot a difference between these two, then give me something that actually is a bug in F&A. And F&A is used in a lot of things now. Like I believe that, you know, wine uses it as well under the hood. So it's pretty robust at this point. So I trust it. Okay, this is probably enough. So I think I'm done with Beyond Compare, and I'm just going to start fixing this because I'd like to actually get the code to run before the end of the 2 hours. Okay, so what's wrong here? Is this giving me the right thing? God, I hate when it does this. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Oh, that's why. That should exist. So here's where I use let the compiler fix stuff for me. But I think that's not going to work. I know I called this code somewhere else. There we go. So I'm just going to crib from those other locations. Don't need to re-implement anything. I'm just going to crib from other copies of it because it works. Let me just compile again here. 11 errors. Voice. voice. Pan is kept for that reason. I changed that to, did I actually change that? I didn't. You know, it's probably better for it to be mastering voice. It just is. Even though I want to make the same, it's more accurate to what it is. Master voice doesn't make any sense. Okay, so this, let's see if there's an equivalent to this. I don't know if this is something that Off Audio actually implements or not. I think in X Audio, it might just be a macro or something. Yeah, that's all it is. That's one. So there's these helper in here, and we depended on this one. I'm going to simply crib this one from X Audio. I don't know if there's any legal concerns over what I've done here, but you know, it's probably fine. I just saw what I did. It's the wrong place. There we go. Back to here. If this happens, you work on the same thing and you end up copying the wrong one. Oh, damn it. So yeah, I am not a lawyer, but interesting. How am I defining that? Oh, we have to use math defines. Interesting. What if that's a Microsoft only thing? I guess we're going to find out. I guess it won't hurt anything if it's the wrong thing. Well, that's annoying. Is that exactly what it told me to do? Okay, that worked. Whatever, dudes. Whatever. C, C++, who cares? It's not a big deal. Anyways, this compiles, so that's a positive. So what I was going to do was, we had this desktop BK tests in here. And I think we had audio tests in here. But they're not in here. Nope, don't want to add new item. Nope, nope. Add this link. So here's some audio tests. So I think these will now come. I think that'll build now. We're just about out of time. That sucks. I was hoping that I'd be able to get through all this. I thought I'd be able to get through all of this. But whatever. We'll use this as a test. So let's just run one of these tests. Let's just go sound effect tests. I'm going to come here and I'm just going to go run tests. See what happens. I don't know if you'll hear the audio I'm getting here, but I will. If I get any at all. First, I want to verify things are actually working. Let's find something that actually plays a sound. I mean, I guess instance test. Yeah, that might be the one to run. See if we hear anything. No, failed. I think that one actually does stuff with sound effects. It creates a sound effect and does stuff. So let's see what happens. I'm going to set a breakpoint here and debug this one. Got this other window. Debug. So I'm going to step into this and see what it actually does. I think that part I don't need to worry about. I think this is the part where I need to worry about it. Sound effect instance. Platform setup instance. Voice equals null. Sound effect system create. Yes. Okay, something is not up to date. I don't know what it is. What is this fucking window? God damn it. Visual Studio loves to pop up this shitty diagnostic tools thing that I've never used in my life. Every time. All right. So why is it here? I think this is not right at all. It says it's not up to date, which suggests that something else is happening here. It's reading the wrong file, I think. Stop that real quick. I'm going to force it to rebuild this. I think this is the problem that I ran into last time. Like it's not copying the DLL to the right place. Oh, that's a problem. Can't link F audio live. Why can't it link F audio live? Oh, maybe it doesn't exist. Oh no, we got so close. Where is third-party dependencies? External audio. I guess this doesn't have the actual lib in it, and it hasn't been built. Annoying. I might actually need to run. How do I build that real quick? How do I build that real quick? I need to run the builder that'll build the lib into this location. Okay. I'm not building it in 3 minutes, I don't think, unfortunately. That sucks, and I can't really go over today, or at least not by a lot. Maybe by a little bit. Let's see. I'd like to get it to at least play a sound. Let's see. I basically need to run this task, and I don't know how to run it. Because I need it to build this. How do I tell it to run? I forget how that works. I never use these things. So, fuck it. Who knows what craziness is going to ensue here? Well, that's not what I wanted to do. I can't run build SH. How do I run this? I forget. Oh, that's right. I go to run with PowerShell. It's going to do a bunch of shit that I don't care about, unfortunately. But at least I kept it from building. I kept it from building SDL, so it's not going to spend wasting time doing that. But this should trigger the build script, which should build FNA, which should generate a live. I wish I knew what command line parameters to give it to say, just build the dependencies and that's it. You would think something like that would be like in our, in our README. Yeah. README has a lot of words and pictures, but not how to build. And really, the README, one of the primary things of a README would be to explain how to build the code, right? Prerequisite to build from source. Source code prerequisite. Yeah, this isn't up to date or correct. It definitely should talk about the build scripts in here somewhere. Something for Simon, the documentation guys, to look at. Okay, I guess that thing finished. Maybe still running. I don't know. I guess it finished. Okay. I hate it when windows finish and then disappear on you. But if it did, that means that our native MonoGame external F audio should have lives in it now. Okay, we'll put it. There it is. Yeah, I built it. Yep. So if that's true, then this code should build now. If it all hooks in together, and it did build now. So maybe when I run this, it will load the right thing now. Let's see what happens. This breakpoint was here, but it didn't stop. That doesn't mean it's not going to initialize it right now. I think it lazily initializes stuff. So it's voice create, set buffer, play. Why do you want to initialize PCM? Sure. So there it is. Yeah, it did create it. It's going to my code. It's going to step through my code. I like to step through my code. Okay. Initialize PCM buffer, wave data, offset length. It all looks reasonable. Super freaking long line. That looks all correct. CB size, poor CB size. No one ever said to you. Link 1600. All right. Does have wave data. It copies that wave data. It sounds correct. Second. So it's a voice. Call set buffer on it, which creates the audio. Yep, creates a source voice. Voice is created. Format. Assigns the buffer to hold on to. And calls play. Stops the previous voice, even though nothing was playing. Sets the loop flag. Count infinite. Submit source buffer. Start. Date playing. An exception. Okay. State should be playing, but it's not. That could be timing. Let's see. Let's stop this and let's verify. I'm going to go just for a couple more minutes here, but I need to jump off. I'm going to run it again, but without debugging. Just see if it, yeah, but was stopped. So it calls play, but the state that it got back was stopped for some reason. Let's try to see why. Could be a timing thing. I'm going to let it play, and I'm going to just set a breakpoint in get state. See if it's actually getting here. Might be just a bug in that. I don't want to break anywhere else. I don't want to break in play. I don't want to break in set buffer. Any of these things. Okay, debug. Shit, I didn't want to do that. Okay, here's get state, which is happening from where? That initial one. Here's the second get state that happens inside of instance play. Interesting. What stores the current state, I guess. This is internal thing. It checks the state to see if it's already playing. Don't play. Some shit it does. In this case, it says, hey, I'm stopped, because, yeah, I'm stopped. The state is playing. State is paused, resume, otherwise. And so play checks if it's paused, resume. There's a lot of redundant kind of things being checked here. If it's not paused, then if there's sound instance available, and it's not exact, then platform set volume, then platform, let's see, volume is 1, master volume. I need to go check that and see if that actually does anything correctly. It could be a problem there. Platform play. I'm going to hit F5 on this. Shit. It could be that it doesn't play immediately. I'm going to do something tricky here. I'm going to sleep for 10 seconds after calling play on this loop sound to see if it actually starts at all. So I'm just going to run it. So the test is running now. I hear no audio. Yeah, so I heard no audio. I don't know if FNA requires some extra stuff, like does it require a tick internally to keep things pumping and going, or does it handle that all on its own? So this unit test is a failure, but the code is more similar. It should be correct. So yeah, not quite where we wanted to be. That said, I might see if I can stream a little bit this weekend. Maybe I can. We'll see. I'm going to be up at the office here on Saturday, doing some work. So maybe during that I can we can go over this a little bit more. But yeah, so that was 2 hours. Seems like it went quick, but we made some progress. We got this more similar. I will push back my changes back to that branch. I'll let Sepset know if he's not aware that I did this stream this weekend, this on here today, and let him know that there'll be some changes being pushed back to kind of make these more similar and fix the issues in it. And then, yeah, if I can get some time to stream this weekend, maybe I will, because I want to get this over the line and done. I thought I'd be able to get this done today, but clearly did not. But I got close. I felt like if I had 1 more hour, I might be able to get this playing and working. But yeah, ran out of time, unfortunately. How about these other tests? Do these run? Yeah, better. No, I mean, these things, I think all these other tests, I don't think really do very much. They just load audio and stuff and make sure it doesn't crash, but it doesn't actually do anything useful. It's really the sound effect instance play and non-sound effect instance tests that are the critical ones. But yeah, getting these tests to run and then the exact tests to run, those will be important to verifying that the thing actually works. It doesn't. Our sound tests aren't super robust. They don't cover everything. There are definitely things it doesn't cover, but it's enough that we can be sure that the core of things work, which at the moment do not. And at least now with these unit tests here, I can commit these unit tests working, and it'll be another thing that we can actually use to test. Actually, I think the tests are always skipped on our build servers, because I think our build servers, which are all in the cloud now, don't have sound effect or don't have sound cards basically, so you can't really test those things. Yeah. So yeah, I'll see if I can spend some weekend on this weekend time. There might be a surprise code stream this weekend. If I can get this stuff working, maybe take another hour or so and see if I can make this work, because I really want to get this over the line. All right, everybody. Well, that was the stream for today. Hopefully you learned something. If not, maybe next time. All right. Bye.